Hey, Summerhill Cinema 700 here with a movie review on the 1983 backwoods slasher film, The Final Terror. This is a movie I've wanted to watch for quite a while. I wanted to pick up the Blu-ray, but I just didn't, and I watched it for the first time today. Finally on Tubi TV, it was on there, so I checked it out on there. And after watching it, I think that I'll probably be picking up the Blu-ray eventually. But let's just get right into it. Had never seen this film before, and if you know me, I'm a huge fan of 80s slasher films, so had to check this one out. Got some notes here just to keep me on track. So this film was released in 1983, but it was actually completed in 1981, and it was just something to do with trying to get the film distributed. They weren't able to do it right after they were finished making the film, so it had to wait a couple years. So we'll just call it 1983. Anyways, at the start of this film, we have some really nice nature scenes, very beautiful scenes in the forests, and I believe that this movie was filmed in California in the redwood forests. But anyways, we see these really nice nature scenes, and we see like some deer walking around and stuff like that. And there's a motorcycle driving down this road, and right as soon as the movie starts, there's a motorcycle crash. This guy and his girlfriend crash on their bikes. He ends up hurting his ankle. She runs off to go find some help. Comes back and he's gone. She's looking around for him, and his body falls down from a tree, and I think his throat slit. And then she ends up dying, and we just see this weird. We don't actually see it's an off-screen kill, but we see this booby trap basically fly down, and you just see it's basically a string covered with lids from cans. You know how the lids from cans are razor sharp. It's covered in those, and then you see blood dripping. So it's kind of a cool little idea there. Shortly after that, we see this group of I guess they're just a group of campers. They're out on a camping expedition or whatever, and we there's a group of guys, and shortly after they meet a group of girls joins them on this camping trip that they're going on to, and we see this one guy, and he's really crazy. He's just acting really strange. And anyways, they all get on this bus, and they head out for their little backpacking adventure or whatnot. The guy driving the bus is like I said, he's this weird guy, and they on the way to where they're going, they drive by this mental hospital, and they're some of the people are kind of heckling him. They're like, "Oh, that's where you used to live, isn't it?" Kind of just joking around. And then they get down to this little area by the river, and the guy who's driving warns them. He's like, "We shouldn't be going here. We should go to another area. This is not safe." But anyways, they go there anyways. The camp counselor, he's like, "No, just don't worry about it." So anyways, they go down to this nice area in the river, and tons of great nature scenes in this film. Anyways, they're having a campfire that night, and this guy, one of the campers, he's telling this story basically about how there was this woman, or I can't remember exactly. It was this young woman. She was in the forest, and she was raped by this guy, and she ended up going crazy because of that. So they put her in a mental hospital, and then her son ended up breaking her out of the place. It was kind of, I can't remember exactly how it went, but they said that her son ended up breaking her out of the place, and he's like, she still lurks these woods, and she comes up to you in the middle of the night and starts breathing on you and all this creepy stuff. So and then the crazy guy just he doesn't like the story. He's like, "Why are you telling them about this story?" He freaks out. He's like, "Get out of here, boy! You don't be telling them these stories, boy." And anyway, shortly after that, a few of the guys just go off wandering into the woods, and I think there's three of them. They go out in the woods, and they trick this guy. I can't remember exactly what it was. They're making a deal with him. They're like, "You can have this or that as long as you do this." It's kind of complicated. I can't remember what I'm even going to try to say here. Anyways, they leave him in the woods, and they're telling him to howl like a wolf. They're like, "You just howl for a couple hours, and we'll be back to get you later." And he just does it. It's really. So while he's doing that, they just take off or whatever. They go back to the camp without the guy because they left him in the woods howling like a wolf. And then they all go and end up looking for the guy, and eventually they finally find him. There's this weird piece of cloth hanging from a tree. They're like, "What the hell is this?" The main guy who's kind of, I guess, this camp leader, we'll just call him the camp leader, and he's the guy who was in a few Twisted Sister music videos, and he was also in an episode of Miami Vice. Can't think of the name right now, but very recognizable face. So he goes looking for him. He hears the howling. He's like, "Oh, what the hell's going on here?" They're yelling his name out. It's funny because his name's Marco, and they're all yelling like "Marco, Marco." I'm just waiting for someone to say Polo. But anyway, so the guy who's like the camp leader, his girlfriend's there as well. They end up he's skinny dipping by himself in a pond in the middle of the woods, and then she ends up showing up, and they start having sex on the rocks. And then all of a sudden, like he gets slashed in the back. I think it's like by a machete or something, but gets slashed in the back by a sharp object. We'll just say. Shortly after that, a couple of the other campers are walking around in the woods, and they see this cabin, and there's smoke coming out of the chimney, so they know that somebody lives there. And one of the guys, one of these campers, he's like, I guess he's like an army surplus guy. He like a Vietnam vet or something like that. I think he is actually a Vietnam vet in the movie. We'll get to that later. But anyways, they go onto the property. They go inside and they're looking around. And the one guy like pranks the other guy, freaks him out. But they find some weird stuff inside the cabin, including some of their own belongings. So like, what the hell's going on here? I knew that bastard was stealing our stuff. That's what I forgot to mention too. Shortly after they were telling that story, that story by the campfire, the kind of crazy bus driver guy, he took off. He's like, "I'm going to leave now. See you guys later." So anyways, we see after we see them exploring this abandoned cabin. We see some of the people, they're sleeping down by the river, and they're just they're deep asleep. And this weird freaking thing, we see like this thing moving, and it looks like it's like this person covered in like plants is crawling around. It's kind of creepy as hell, actually. And it goes right up to one of them and starts like breathing on her, and she screams and it runs off. And then they all wake up, and she's like, "There was this thing, it smelled horrible, and it was breathing on me and whatnot." So it's pretty freaky. They see some movement coming from down the stream. They're right by a river, and it's actually the guy that was out in the woods howling. He's back, so he's okay. He's back in business. One of the girls goes to an outhouse then shortly after that to go to the washroom, and when she's in there, she closes the door, and there she sees a decapitated dog head and also a human head, which was I think it was the camp counselor. I believe it was his body. That's for what I forgot to mention too. In the cabin, they found a dog's head in the cupboard. So then we see the dog's head and a person's head this time, which was the camp counselor, I believe. So they freak out, obviously, and they're like, "Hey, we're going to stay here for the night. As soon as the morning comes, we're going to take off." So they get all like this commando, they paint their faces and everything, and they go up to the cabin in the morning, and they go inside, and there's like this butchered meat on this table, and they're like, "What the hell's going on?" And we see that there's actually something underneath the cabin, and it's holding the camp counselor's girlfriend. And when they're in there, also there's a person's hand in a jar, like being preserved in like formaldehyde or something. There's also a raft there, which was mentioned earlier in the movie, that the guy who was driving the bus, he's supposed to bring them these rafts later on, with the guy who took off, the crazy guy. Anyways, there's a raft on the property, so they grab that in the morning. They paddle downstream, and basically the rest of the movie is them going down the stream on this boat. And as they're going down, you see like this camouflage person like on the side as they're going down the river. And a body falls onto the raft that they're on, and I think it was the camp leader. I can't remember. I don't know if it was the guy or the woman. I think it was I don't know if it was the decapitated guy, or I can't remember exactly. Anyways, a body falls onto the raft. They bury him. They continue down the river, and as they're going down the river, they see this bridge that you see earlier on in the movie, and there's the bus from the bus driver. So they go up there. And they're like, I think this is a trap. The kind of army guys like, this is a trap. But anyways, they go up. There's nothing there. They end up staying the night. And then we see a quick scene where we see the crazy bus driver guy in the cabin, back to the cabin. He's in there. He's like, "I told them they shouldn't have come here." And he's like, "I told them not to come." And then as they're in the bus sleeping that night, they hear walking. They hear footsteps on the roof. And all of a sudden, axe comes through the window. And so they run off into the woods. One of the girls in the group ends up getting separated, and she's attacked by this creature who kind of like slashes her on the neck, but she ends up being fine. They actually just stitch her back up. And actually, back when they first found this cabin, the army guy and then the black dude, there was like some shrooms in there, and they took the shrooms. So now they're kind of kicking in like a day later for some reason. for the army guy. He's like super high, and he's like, "We're gonna take this motherfucker out." And he's like, "Back in Vietnam, we were killing the VC Viet Cong," and anyways, there's this scene where he's like climbing this huge tree. It's kind of cool. They're basically setting up, getting ready to take this guy out, and they know it's the bus driver at this point. Anyways, as they're getting all these booby traps ready, all of a sudden the crazy bus driver guy shows up out of nowhere and starts strangling one of them, and they all beat him to death. And shortly after that, after we see that, we see the creature's hands come up and grabs the army guy's legs, throws him down, and he's dead. And then we see, and then basically one of their booby traps falls down from these trees and skewers the killer. And basically we just hear the crazy guy, the bus driver guy, go, "Mom!" So, surprise, the crazy bus driver, that was his mom. In that story that they told, he was the son, she was the crazy mom that ended up in the mental hospital. And she's basically out to get revenge. And she's like covered in all these plants, kind of like a ghillie suit. So it was definitely an entertaining movie. There's much better 80s slashers out there, let me tell you that. But I think this movie is worth it alone for just the cinematography in these redwood forests in California. Absolutely beautiful cinematography. There weren't that many kills. I think only 2 or 3 in total, and there was not very many like crazy gore effects or anything like that. So nothing insane. The score was very good. I liked there was like some synthesizer here and there, and just some kind of dark and gloomy kind of atmospheric pieces in the film for the soundtrack. But overall, it was an entertaining film, and I think it's worth it alone. And if you're a fan of 80 slashers, you'll probably enjoy this one. It's not an essential, but if you're a completist like I am, then you probably want to check this one out. But yeah, for the cinematography alone, it's worth it. I'm a huge fan of backwoods settings for movies, and this one really showcases that very well. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all there is to say about this film. I did enjoy it. It was entertaining. Like I said, I might pick up the Blu-ray, which Scream Factory put out several years ago. But yeah, that's 1983's The Final Terror. Definitely an entertaining film. Let me know what you think about it if you've seen it, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much for watching my video. All of you take care. Thanks. Bye-bye. Very quickly, just wanted to mention also one thing that I forgot to mention in the video is I really like the way that the film, it creates this very kind of tense kind of atmosphere in the sense that, you have this constant feeling of dread and this constant feeling of that the campers are being stalked in the film. So I really liked how they did that. That was another good aspect of this film, was just that feeling of, that something's after you, but you don't know where it is. It's kind of like if you've ever been out in the woods and you kind of have that strange feeling that something's watching you. You know something's watching you, but you don't know where it is. So that film captured that very well too. So anyways, just wanted to mention that as well. And again, thank you for watching. And yeah, take care.